What's going on, No Horsing Around family? Thanks for tuning back in. I am your host, Zach Boyd. I'm going to do your midday report, and we're super happy to have Cody Felger bring the juice. Anybody in Colts Nation knows who Cody Felger is, but hey, Cody, thanks for dropping in, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. So we're going to dive right in. Julian Blackmon. The reason that we're doing this podcast, the main focus will be Julian Blackmon. Hate to hear it for a guy that you know, Cody, I feel like he's a great human being on and off the field. So you hate to see that for a guy like Julian Blackmon. I felt like he was quietly playing really well too. Like he wasn't making any super splash plays, but God was forcing fumbles. You know, he was an enforcer on that back end, and he was a steady rock for us in a kind of a season where we've been so, banged up in that backfield, in that defensive backfield. He'd been steady for us. So just your quick thoughts and your initial, way you're looking at the Julian Blackmon injury moving forward this season.
Yeah. Freaking sucks, man, to lose a guy like Julian Blackmon. And I think he did it in practice, which is even more frustrating, But yeah, I think, it's interesting because the Colts actually restructured T.Y. Hilton's contract to give them like a little over $2 million in cap space. So you got to think a move is coming here pretty soon. Whether that is a trade, whether that is just signing an outside free agent. I don't know what it's going to be exactly. But, yeah, this news sucks, man, because it backs the Colts into a corner a little bit. And honestly, a little frustrating because you see the Colts letting guys go like Andre Chikari and other guys like that. And you're like, man, it would be really useful to have a guy like that right now. And it seems like, the Colts have sort of backed themselves into this corner. They've kind of made their bed and they have to lay in it right now. And that might mean giving away a draft pick. That might just mean signing an outside free agent. But certainly there might be a little bit of, whoever does come in, it might be a little bit of a learning curve for one of these guys as opposed to a guy that was in your building. So that's just the reality of the situation, man. It just absolutely sucks to lose Julian Blackmon. I mean, a guy that has been very durable for the Colts pretty much throughout his year and a half, I guess, career with Indianapolis. It sucks too because this is his second major injury in the last couple of years. Hopefully he does come back. He's still very young, so I think he will be able to come back. Hopefully sooner rather than later. Hopefully be ready for next season. But yeah, as it stands right now, you lose one of your best defensive players, and that just sucks. I mean, that's just a big blow to your defense in general. It will be interesting to see, man, how the Colts do address it. Do they go internally? I don't think they will. I think they will bring out somebody off the street or trade for somebody. And the Colts have potentially, I'm sure we'll talk about it, but they may have a piece or two to trade as trade bait to try to get another guy at that safety position. But yeah, just a brutal loss for the secondary.
Yeah, no doubt about it, Cody, man. I think about, one thing that Ballard for me has not done a great job of, and I'm a big Ballard fan, man. I mean, there's no doubt about it, but adding that depth on that back end. I think he's been a little bit slow to bring some people in. I know this week that he brought Denard and he brought Jones in, some guys that were high draft picks for other football teams, but they're free agents for a reason, right? Like this, at this point in the season, you got to wonder how much they'll help you or what type of an upgrade. But I do like the fact that he did bring them in. Maybe he gives them a chance to roll this week. I just don't see how you can bring a veteran in this late in the week after this news comes about and really have him up to speed and ready to play. So I think next week you mentioned that trade stuff, and I want to get into that. Hot topic, I think Josina Anderson actually reported 4 teams are kind of doing their diligence, doing their homework. Saints, Carolina Panthers, I even heard the 49ers, a team that we played this Sunday, might have a little bit of an interest in the Saints as well. Just where are you at with the Marlon Mack trade? Are you for it, against it? What do you like? What do you not like?
Yeah, I mean, initially, like, it sucks. Like, I don't want to lose Marlon Mack. But right now, you're barely using him, right? So, like, I figure if he's shown a little bit of burst the last couple of weeks. If that can kind of hopefully raise his trade value a little bit and you can get a guy that can help you now, I think I'm for it because let's be honest, Marlon Mack's not coming back next year. He's demanded, he's asked for a trade, not demanded. He's asked for a trade, and the Colts have mutually agreed to seek that trade partner. So I think why not? Why not try to target another safety, try to help your secondary there, kind of ease into that loss. And, that player that maybe you trade for, and again, we'll see depending on what happens. But if you do trade for somebody, if it is, somebody that's pretty decent, he could be a nice backup for you. Or if Julian Blackmon's not ready to roll, week 1 next year, still recovering from that Achilles, because it is a major injury, and you just don't know the timeline on certain things. But he could be a nice third safety there for you, something that the Colts have been looking for and haven't quite found yet up to this point. So, yeah, I think definitely if you're trading Marlon Mack, you need to trade for a safety at this point because that's the biggest hole right now in this defense. And so, yeah, for Marlon Mack right now, for me, it wouldn't just be draft capital. It would actually be a player. So.
Yeah, that's a very interesting way of looking at it, too. I'd always kind of had my mind thinking, what value will we get? Probably 5th round at the very best, a team who's in a really dire situation, but probably more likely a 6th round pick for Marlon Mack. I don't see us getting a whole lot for him. But that being said, I feel like we got to get something back for him, right? He's going to walk. You mentioned he's asked for a trade. It's been mutual, but he's not going to be a Colt moving forward. You might as well get something for that. And I feel like that Hines has not been able to be utilized properly because they've had this thing lingering over them that they want to get Mac a few carries in the game and just kind of keep him involved, keep him fresh in case something comes up. I think I want that 1-2 punch of Taylor and Hines, man. I mean, you're going to sign this guy to a 3-year deal and give him $6 million a year. You probably need to use them, right? And you need to use them in a little bit of a heightened role. A name that I heard on Twitter earlier, I don't know that I'm for this necessarily, and I don't see how this translates and fits long-term, was Jabril Peppers is going to be available, it looks like. Wow. I don't know how you feel about him and how you would feel about him kind of being a mid-season addition. Where I'm at, Cody, I think this week is an impasse. You've got to find out if you can win this week because that's going to determine how you handle and how aggressive that you might be in the trade market, honestly, because you're 2-5. I don't know that you're giving up a whole lot at that point, to bring something back to try to salvage what may be almost, a miracle chance of even, outside looking in going to the playoffs. You win this game and then, the Titans lose and you're playing against, the Halloween game at home and top for a tie at first place. Then maybe you jump in. You've created this $2 million extra cap space. You got to think it's for a reason. That just doesn't make a lot of sense to do it for no reason. I think this week is a wait and see for Chris Ballard. I think he wants to see how his team does this week. And then next week, I expect a little action one way or the other. Where are you at on that?
Yeah. Another point that I think can be considered as well is Jordan Wilkins he was out last week. He hasn't come back to practice quite yet. Had a non-COVID illness. I don't really know what that is exactly, but I think right now, if when Jordan Wilkins returns, I think maybe then the Colts will feel more comfortable trading Marlon Mack. But I think that's probably why they held on to him so long, is because Wilkins just kind of, you don't know where he is right now. You don't know what really the sickness is. But yeah, if he returns, and also you mentioned if the Colts win today or win on Sunday, and then they have the chance to, compete for the division here in a couple weeks, I think then they make the move. But yeah, I think it does hinge on this week on if you are able to pull it out, able to win. And maybe the Colts do, bring in, I don't know, maybe they just bring in a guy for insurance and they don't necessarily start him, but I don't know what you're going to do exactly. Maybe that means, the guy you just brought in at safety, you just promote him to the active roster, but he's not your starter, But it will be a very intriguing game because, it's interesting. Julian Blackmon's kind of that eraser in the middle, right? He's really good at stopping that deep pass. I actually was on with a 49ers guy yesterday, and he was telling me how, Jimmy G, I think he's presumed to start. That's really not his game, is throwing down the field. So maybe it won't be as significant of a loss this week against Jimmy G. But certainly moving forward, the Colts need to figure something out, especially if they want to go on this winning streak that we all think they can and should go on here in the next couple of weeks. So, yeah, I think overall it will really hinge on this week. I think you're right. Yeah,
100%. Want to switch over to the offensive line. Chris Reed, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm still going to ask you. I think you're a big fan of Chris Reed and the way he's played in the last couple of weeks. Frank Reich mentioned earlier in the press conference yesterday that he's earned the right to split reps with Mark Glowinski. And I, Zach Boyd, am for that. I think that Chris Reed deserves that opportunity. And look, you're trying to win football games, man. You're 2-4. You don't have any margin for error. You've got to start stacking wins. You can't just win every other week. You've got to win multiple weeks in a row if you climb back into this thing. Mm-hmm. And I think you got to play the best 5, Cody. I don't care who it is. I take egos aside. I think you play the best 5. And if I'm thinking of the best 5 on our line, I think Chris Reed's got to be a part of that best 5, right?
Oh, I think so too. And a lot of people were like, well, keep Reed at left guard, move Nelson to tackle. And I'm just like, that just does not sound like a good idea, because everybody likes to rag on Eric Fisher. Yeah, he hasn't had a great start to the year. He hasn't been very good. But what he has been really good at is the run blocking department. Like, he's been phenomenal with that. And yeah, Mark Glowinski, I mean, I've never been a huge fan of Mark Glowinski. You know, I've been fine with him on that right side, but I always felt like you could upgrade there. And Chris Reed has been, from all, you know, league, all the standpoints and all the statistics, he's been one of the best guards in football. And that is enticing to me, because if you get Quentin Nelson back, say this week, he's practicing this week, so presumably he'll be left guard. He's one of, if not the best offensive lineman in all the NFL. And now that he's fully healthy, hopefully he'll get back to his old self there. And then you put Chris Reed on that right side. I mean, that's a really, really good guard tandem, like a really good guard tandem. And so I think for me, yeah, I think he deserves playing time. I really do. And Glowinski's been struggling a little bit, especially in pass pro. I think he's allowed someone like 7 sacks already. He's an average guard. We know what he is. And Chris Reed's just playing better. And I think the good thing is, I'm glad the Colts are doing this, because I would be really upset if they just didn't give him an opportunity because they like Glowinski. Well, okay, I get if you like a guy, but like, play the better player. And I'm glad that the Colts are doing that, because Chris Reed, like Frank Reich said, he has deserved to stay on the field, man. That's something I've been pushing for. Even after this last game, I was just like, please continue to put him on the field, give him opportunities to continue to do what he's doing. I mean, we said even with Glowinski at right guard, the Colts, when healthy, had one of the better offensive lines in all football. How much better could it get now if Chris Reed's your right guard and Quentin Nelson's your left guard? You know, I think the sky's the limit for this group, honestly.
I would agree 100%. I mean, I just had visions while you were talking about that of combo blocks of Quentin Nelson and Chris Reed. Like, I mean, my gosh, man. I mean, you want to talk about moving people out of that pile, and really, really, he's been one of the key components. You mentioned Eric Fisher was a great point. He's had shortcomings in the pass blocking game, but he's not falling short in the run blocking, department. I mean, Eric Fisher's been very good. Them two together, quite frankly, have been very, very solid on that left side in the absence of Quentin Nelson. Braden Smith, man, I don't quite understand what's going on with him. I know he's working on the field with the trainers on the sideline. You got to think something happened along this way, Cody, that really has stunted his ability to get back on the field. But me as a fan, I'm just interested. The question, I guess, for you is, do you feel let down at the way that the Colts communicate these injuries with the fan base? They're just so vague. They don't want us to know anything. How do you feel about that?
Well, I know I get it. Like, at the same point, like, you can't – sometimes injuries happen and they linger, and, like, it sucks. I just kind of wish in hindsight that the Colts would have just put him on IR, saved themselves a roster spot, because I don't know how you look at that and say, oh, it's going to be under 3 weeks. And then it goes into week 5, week 6 that he's still missing. It is just infuriating from a standpoint of, like, how is he that slow of a healer? Like, this is like weeks overdue, So you do wonder if there was a extra complication within that. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but yeah, I see how fans are frustrated, man, because it definitely seems like sometimes you're like, well, you're the head coach. How do you not know what this severity of this injury is? But at the same time, I get it, because sometimes stuff happens. Like, you think something's going to happen and then it completely goes the other way. A lot of times I think we're used to, like, players getting back sooner than anticipated. So when it's on the flip side, a lot of fans get up in arms, like the Colts lied to us and stuff. I don't think that's true. I just think this was a weird, kind of situation where the Colts honestly believed that Braden Smith was only going to miss a week or two, and it turned into something more, and he healed a lot slower than they projected. So I'm not too upset about it. And I guess if it was still Julian Davenport out there at right tackle, I'd be a little bit more upset. And you do wonder, man, like, okay, if Julian Davenport was still doing what he was doing and Carson Wentz was still getting hit a ton, do the Colts try to rush, Braden Smith back out there? But I think Matt Pryor, just the revelation that he's been in that trade with the Eagles, I mean, he's been really, really good. Talking about Chris Reed, Matt Pryor has been just as good, honestly. And that's huge, man. That's huge to have a backup swing tackle that you can rely on, and especially a guy that I talked to one of my friends who's an Eagles fan, an Eagle podcaster, and he was like, good luck with Matt Pryor, man. He is not good. And he has just like exceeded every expectation. And he has made it like, I think the Colts probably feel comfortable now. We don't have to try to rush Braden back, right? We can just let him take his time. We obviously want him back out there, but Matt Pryor can hold down the fort until he comes back. So I think I feel a little bit more comfortable now knowing that we have a tackle out there that's actually going to be competent,
100%, man. I mean, like, I guess I allowed, and I try not to do this, Cody, but I guess I allowed the Eagles fan base to cloud my judgment on Pryor, honestly. Like, I had such a bad taste in my mouth after the trade because all of the talk was like, well, you did us a favor. You know what I mean? Like, you took him off our hands. Wait till you have to see him pass block. Well, I haven't seen any of that. Like, I've seen him be very, very steady. And he's another guy. It's kind of crazy how good we have become at run blocking here in the last couple of weeks. Maybe it's the team we're playing against. I don't know, what you attribute that to, but it's a very physical unit right now, and they're really, really doing a good job opening those holes for Jonathan Taylor. And he just seems very confident in his decision-making. It's that 1 foot in the ground, turning it upfield. And he's one of the few running backs in the NFL that can really change the complexity of a football game because of his breakaway speed. Michael Pittman Jr. gets one more block on there, and I know he was hitting his head on the sidelines, and that's a touchdown. That 83-yard run turns into a touchdown. Still amazing the way he's played for us in the last few weeks and kind of put this football team on his back, honestly. And I have to believe, leading into my last question, now, I was listening to your podcast right before I came on here. If you guys get off here, I highly recommend you listen to Cody talk about Frank Reich, the kind of the quarterback whisperer, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that's so true though, Cody. Like if you think about now what he's done since he's been here, you take a guy 17 years in Phillip Rivers who would never throw the football away. Like his whole thing was, I'm going to throw 50-50 balls. I'm never going to lose a play. I'm always going to give my guy a chance to catch a football. And somehow, some way talks Phillip Rivers into, hey, it's okay to throw the football away and live to see the next play. Don't take a sack. Just get rid of it, man. Well, last week, I'm in the stands. I'm watching the game, and there was a time in the third quarter where Carson Wentz was feeling that pressure. No receiver was open, and he throws the football out of bounds and lives to see the next play. And I'm thinking, my gosh, man, like is Frank Reich actually getting to Carson Wentz? Is he actually starting to teach this guy, listen, it's okay to throw the football away and to not take a sack. It's okay to not make a stupid pass and to throw an interception. Really remarkable, man. And I couldn't be more happy with where Carson Wentz is. If we were a 4-2 team and not a 2-4 team, I think Carson Wentz is probably looked at as a possible outside dark horse MVP candidate, honestly, because he's played that well. I mean, that shovel pass was just an anomaly for the interception. In my mind, Carson Wentz has not thrown an interception this year. Like, that's the way I look at it. I was just curious your thoughts before we get off here on, Carson Wentz and just how Frank Reich's relationship with him has worked so far this season.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of points I want to get. I want to make sure I get all my points here because there's a lot of different tangents I could go off on here. But, I think you're right. Like, the one interception, not an interceptable ball. So Carson Wentz, I think it's him and Tom Brady, the only two quarterbacks in the league who have yet to throw 1 or 0 interceptable passes so far. So, yeah, I mean, he's just been a revelation, man, this year. Going back to Matt Pryor real fast, I don't think it's a coincidence that when Matt Pryor took over for Julian Davenport, this Colts offense just kind of exploded, and Carson Wentz has had his best 3 weeks that he's had in a long time, certainly his best 3 weeks with the Colts back to back after getting healthier. But, yeah, talking about Frank Reich, I mean, you look at every single quarterback he has brought in. You look at Andrew Luck in 2018. You look at Jacoby Brissett in 2019. You look at Phillip Rivers in 2020. You look at Carson Wentz in 2021. Every single year, these quarterbacks have played better under Frank Reich. I mean, I give Frank Reich a lot of crap, and I think deservedly so sometimes, for play calling, for lack of execution, for all these things. I think it's valid. I think it's valid for me to do that. But I will say the reason why, and really the only reason why I had confidence Carson Wentz could turn it around is because of Frank Reich, because of what he's done in the past with all these different quarterbacks, because being a former quarterback, he understands things that a lot of head coaches wouldn't necessarily understand. And I think that honestly makes the difference. and how he's able to communicate with his quarterbacks. And I mean, right now, yeah, I mean, this is great news. I know the injury sucks to Julian Blackmon. I know the Colts record-wise aren't necessarily where they're at, aren't in a good spot right now. But I will say this, it seems like on the surface, the Colts have started to figure out their franchise quarterback. And in my opinion, you can figure everything else out. But if you can't figure out your franchise quarterback, you're in big trouble. I mean, Zach, how many teams for 5, 10, 15, 20 plus years couldn't find a starting quarterback in the league, right? They drafted number one, whatever. They signed guys and nobody worked out. And the fact that Frank Reich was able to get Carson Wentz playing the way he has, I mean, it's actually incredible how well Carson Wentz has looked. And now Carson's not perfect, right? He's not perfect by any stretch. In that same game, I remember he had a play where he basically sacked himself, held on to the ball too long. Carson still has some of those tendencies, but it is very interesting, the parallels between him and Luck, because if you remember what people were saying about Andrew Luck, his biggest knock was he holds onto the football too long and he tries to play hero ball essentially. And sometimes he gets sacks, he throws the ball, he gets intercepted, all that stuff. And when Frank Reich came in, I mean, Andrew Luck wasn't perfect either, but he definitely helped to cut down on those dumb mistakes. Andrew Luck threw it away. If you remember that Buffalo game, Andrew Luck ran it out of bounds. And that was clearly something that Frank Reich told him to do, And he basically said, "Oh, should I run out of bounds?" And Frank Reich's like, "Yeah, I would have like body slammed you if you did it." So he knows those things, And I think I got to give him credit, man. Carson Wentz has looked really good when healthy. Now everybody likes to point to that Tennessee game where Carson Wentz wasn't fully healthy. I've kind of thrown that game out, honestly.
Me too.
When Carson Wentz is healthy, and when you give him time, when Matt Pryor is actually not getting beat every play, and Chris Reed's playing as well as he has, and the offensive line's gelling, the Colts are running the ball, Carson Wentz can look like an MVP candidate. Now, the one thing I will say is he needs to get his touchdowns up. I mean, you do take some of those away with Jonathan Taylor, but overall, yeah, man, I think Carson Wentz has firmly at least put himself in the conversation, especially for comeback player of the year, maybe even MVP. If he can get the touchdowns up, I think he's certainly in that conversation, though.
100%, man. I love what you had to say there. I just want to mention that to my listeners to go over and hop on and listen to that podcast. I think you guys did a great job on that. I mean, it was really cool the way that you dived in there. Guys, like I said, we're just going to do a quick pop in. Julian Blackmon done for the season. Unfortunately, life goes on in the NFL, especially if you're a Colts fan. We're used to these injuries. We'll be gauging this trade market as the next week goes. We're getting closer to the trade deadline. Got a huge Sunday night game. I'm calling it as close to a must-win as you could have at this point in the season. I mean, it's a very, very important game if we want to have a real chance to win the AFC South. I mean, that's just the way it is. But that being said, I think there's some good things about the Indianapolis Colts. We're starting to get some players healthy. Dial came back to practice. Quentin's back to practice. We seem to be going in the right direction from the health department. So that being said, Cody, thank you so much, man, for hopping on. Always a great time when you come on, and we love hearing your insights here on the No Horsing Around podcast. Guys, we're asking for you to like, rate, review, share, subscribe, and join the No Horsing Around family. Until next time, thank you so much. Take care.